It's me.
We're gonna maybe mute everybody just while we open up.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeannie Sweeney from the Above Board Chamber, and I'm delighted at today's program because we're going to meet our candidates, and we have a lot of them. And it's really important that we get to know them and how they think and what their future promises are to us in Southwest Florida. This is a very big position. And before we even start, I want to thank each one of you for getting involved in this, because it takes a lot to get involved in a campaign and a lot to put life on hold to do something for Southwest Florida. So on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you. People that are here for the first time, welcome to the Above Board Chamber's webinar. We're excited to have you. If you're not familiar with the Above Board Chamber, what we do is we do panels of experts each month that teach business topics in Lee and Cuyler County. What that means is that 90% of the people that come to our meetings are business owners. So we work with a lot of business owners in both counties. We do a lot of things for our members when they get involved with us, so we can help highlight them, and especially in what's going on with the world right now. A lot of people are disappearing, and we don't want that to happen to our business community. So we find things that we can do to make it better and promote their businesses and give them the education they need that will keep them going. A lot of the businesses now we're finding in Southwest Florida and around the country are staying home. So that's a new way of doing business, and it's amazing all the people that are going to be doing it that way. So we are excited. We also have sponsors for this meeting. We're very excited about them. One is Connie Ramos Williams. Where are you up in the corner, Connie? Would you tell us a little bit about Conrad PR and marketing? And before you start, I just want to say thank you to help us put our webinars on each week. Basically, we're doing them. So thank you for all that you do for the Above Board Chamber. So tell us a little bit about your company.
Thank you, Jeannie. We're proud to be a sponsor of the Above Board Chamber meeting and Above Board Chamber and this meeting. Conrad PR Marketing is proud to sponsor today's event with all these incredible candidates. We have the pleasure of working with a diverse portfolio of clients in various industries, such as banks, medical and legal practices, restaurants, manufacturers, retail, builders, developers, and political candidates. We have a team of graphic designers, content writers, and digital marketing specialists that we really help, especially political candidates, with key messaging, design, websites, and so forth. But just helping businesses large and small throughout Southwest Florida and across the country with really their overall branding and messaging to make sure that they can increase their revenue and build upon their success. So thanks for having us here today, Jeannie. Happy to be a sponsor.
Well, we are honored to have you sponsor, and we really like your office, because if we all had the beach behind us, I think we'd all be a little bit happier. So thank you for bringing the beach to us. Our other sponsor cannot be with us right now. It's Michael Longo in Naples. He owns Naples Floral Design. And the reason Michael cannot be with us is because things are opening up and brides are calling left and right to his floral shop in Naples. And he's very, very busy. So we're letting everybody know, if you know somebody that's getting married or looking for flowers or whatever kind of occasion, Michael is ready and able to get it going and help you with your upcoming event. I always tell everybody I've gotten flowers from Michael on many occasions, and I have to say, I think he puts drugs in them because they last longer than any flowers I've ever gotten in my entire life. So I'm not sure what he puts in them, but they are phenomenal. So if you're interested in that, you can call Michael at 239-514-1414. So, and again, it's Naples Floral Design. So thank you, Michael, and thank you, Connie. Let's start our program. I'm excited to once again have Connie as our guest host for this program, Meet the Candidates. We did this 2 years ago in Harborside in Lee County, and we did it in Naples Hilton in Naples, and we had packed houses. So we had all the candidates, and we learned a whole lot of things about our candidates. Unfortunately, we could not meet today, so we thought this is a good way that we can get to know you better, you can get to know us better, and get your message out to the community and let them know. Anybody that's listening to this program, just to let you know, along with our candidates, they will get a copy of this program when it's over. So if you want to use it or listen to what you say and how you can improve on it, there you go. You're going to get that. So Connie is going to start our program. So thank you for being our guest host, and you're on.
Thank you, Jeannie. Today we have the pleasure of having 10 of our U.S. congressional candidates with us. They are Cindy Banyai, Dan Severson, Patrick Pote, Byron Donalds, David Holden, Dane Eagle, Daniel Coel, Christy McLaughlin, Mayor Randy Henderson, and Darren Aquino. So what we're going to do to get started with our program today, there's 3 questions that we're going to ask each of the candidates. So we're going to start off by asking one, and we're going to go ahead and give each candidate 2 minutes to answer each of those questions, just to keep the program running on time and on schedule. I will be keeping track with my trusty timer in front of me to make sure that we don't go over. Our little Wizard of Oz behind the screen here will go ahead, and if we go much over those 2-minute marks, you'll see that you're kind of cut off there, and then we go on to the next candidate, just to make sure we keep things fair and make sure that each candidate has ample time to provide us with the answers they want. I'd like to, on behalf of Jeannie and the Above Board Chamber, thank each and every one of you for, number one, putting your name in the hat to run for U.S. Congress, to serve our area and represent us. It takes a great deal of courage and strength just to put your name in the hat and take that leap forward to do that. So we thank each and every one of you and wish you much luck and success in your races. For the participants that are out there listening to this webinar today, at the bottom of your screen, there is if you scroll your mouse to the bottom of the screen, you'll notice a Q&A area. If you click on that, you're able to go ahead and type in questions for the candidates. We'd ask that you'd go ahead and put, if there's a specific question you'd like to direct to one candidate, please make that clear in your question. That we're trying to leave enough time at the end of the program so we can go ahead and get to a few of your questions that you might have for these candidates as well. We have a great audience with us today. Thank you for being part of this. Without delaying things, I'm going to go ahead and get the first question started. And the first question for our candidates is this: what are the top 2 or 3 issues you hope to address if elected to office? Again, you'll each have 2 minutes to answer that question. So if you only can get to 2 out of the 3 or have 3, just be mindful of the 2-minute mark. The first question will be directed, we're going to start off with Cindy Banyai. And again, the question, what are the top 2 or 3 issues you hope to address if elected to office? Cindy, the floor is yours. There you are, Cindy.
Here I am. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for having us here today. I'm Dr. Cindy Banyai. I'm a mom and small business owner, and I'm fighting for our water, our health, and our community. And that is my issues right there in a nutshell. I start off with our water because I know that's so important to us here in Southwest Florida. It's the lifeblood of our economy. We derive pleasure from it. It's where our kids play. It's where we make memories for our families. So it's very important that we keep it healthy and safe. We had the scourge of red tide and blue-green algae affect us significantly a few years ago. So what I'd like to do is make sure that we have the right research to understand that phenomena so that we can prevent it, we can react to it, and we can do better by holding polluters accountable and work together to make sure that water is always there and healthy and safe for us. So that's the first issue that I am looking to address as your congressional representative. The second thing is our health. So for me, this is a personal battle. My youngest daughter, who's just turned 3 this year, spent the first 2 years of her life in and out of the hospital fighting a rare blood disease. And while she was fighting for her life, we were fighting the insurance company. And I was scared to death that my family was going to go bankrupt from those costs. Thankfully, we had a marketplace plan. I was a small business owner. And so we didn't have any other options. And we were able to get that care and save her life. And it still wasn't enough at times. And so what I'm really looking forward to doing in that respect is making sure that all Americans have access to affordable health care. I'm looking to make sure that we have a streamlined model, something along the lines of the Japanese model, where there's a sliding scale for user fees and a decentralized implementation of nationalized cost setting. I think that's what I'd like to add to the debate around affordable health care in our country. And the last thing for me is our community. I have worked in our community for the past 11 years. It's where I've built my business. It's where my kids go to school. And it's really important to me that we have a strong, safe, and stable community for all members. In fact, I've been driven to run for Congress here because of my work.
Okay.
Were you waving at me? Is that right at time?
Yes, and
All
I think that's what I'm going to do to each candidate, is just kind of put my hand up when the time is up. And Cindy, thank you very much. You did great trying to get everything in those 2 minutes. The same question for Dan Severson.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having us today. This is a great opportunity to get out into the business sector, and I appreciate that. My background is 22 years military. I was a Navy Top Gun fighter pilot, and I spent 8 years in the legislature, 4 terms in the legislature, and each one of those terms was endorsed by NFIB. And so that, to me, was a very precious position to be in, because I do value business. And one of the things as an officer in charge of an F-18 squadron is a lot like a business in itself. And so with a multi-million-dollar business, we handle the budgets, we handle the assets, we maintain the readiness. So all of those things are in my past. The 2 things that I think I want to really go after in the Congress, number 1 would be getting on the Energy and Economics Committee. And for the Economics Committee, that deals with the water, which, as Cindy said, is a huge issue in this area. To me, it's passionate. I live on a canal. Water is a very big part of our life here, and it's a huge part of our life down here for Southwest Florida. And so part of that process is, how do we bring those federal dollars in? How do I work across the aisle? How do I work with the other congressional candidates there to identify the funding that is needed, that has already been started, but to continue that relationship to bring that funding here? The other issue that I want to deal with in the Congress immediately will be the TCJA, the Tax Cut Jobs Act, that President Trump passed in December of 2017, signed into law. That has been a huge boon for our economy. Obviously, it's taken a downturn with the COVID deal, but I believe that it's set an underpinning of a base on which we will continue to build. That expires December 31st, 2025. We need to continue to press for that, and then to press for the amortization, not amortization, but actually expensing of the costs for capital for businesses, to be able to expense those capital costs and be able to put them in a short term so that they can realize greater gains and actually see a better profit for their businesses. So thanks for having me here, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the debate.
Thank you very much, Dan. That was perfect timing on everything too. We're going to go over to Patrick Pote right now and hear from him.
Patrick sound.
Javier, if you can bring up Patrick Pote, if he's still with us.
Yeah.
I am.
Hey, how are you,
Can you
Patrick?
hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you
Okay,
for joining
very
us.
good. I have a background in renewable energy. Ever since 9/11, I began promoting renewable energy. I wanted to do something about our energy crisis, and I could not understand why we weren't doing anything with solar, renewable energy, battery power storage, and other important issues. I created a foundation and have been working the last 20 years promoting the rebuilding of our electric power grid so it is much more efficient. And I've received support from around the country. Even back in 2006, I started writing letters to Congress. I heard from John McCain, and I heard from Governor Jeb Bush and Charlie Crist and others. Sent my proposals to the Department of Energy and got support from them. The reason I'm running for Congress is over the years, I've talked to a lot of powerful people all over the United States, governors, senators, et cetera, and I have not seen a lot of action move forward. I have a vision of how to rebuild America's electric infrastructure so it's much more efficient. And when we reduce our energy consumption by promoting solar and renewable energy. We reduce fossil fuel consumption. We reduce pollution. And then, of course, it protects our water quality as well. Prior to my interest in jumping into renewable energy in 2001, in 1990, I heard about an idea for children's education. Deaf children were learning to read from caption programming on television. And I created a foundation to promote that for hearing kids. I sent it out nationwide. I sent it to all 50 governors. And I heard from roughly 40 states, either the governor themselves or the Department of Education in each state. I also got a great letter from the state of Florida. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, and I've been in Florida for 15 years. I've been in Naples for 5 years. And so I felt compelled to run because I want to promote these ideas. A better grid also improves America's national security.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick. We appreciate that. And thank you so much for helping us stay on time too. Our next candidate, Byron Donalds, would you please share your top 2 or 3 issues you hope to address if elected?
Well, thank you, Connie and Jeannie and the Above Board Chamber for putting this event on, this meeting. It's a pleasure to be back with you guys, although I like being in the Naples Hilton better than on Zoom, but you know, that's okay.
So do we.
Yeah. First of all, I think my name is Byron Donalds. I'm a candidate for United States Congress, Florida 19. And the couple of key issues that I want to run and work on in the legislature. Number one is taxes and regulation. I think it was already commented on by Mr. Severson about the need for renewing the current tax situation in America. It is important that we understand that, especially coming out of coronavirus and the fiscal impacts and the economic impacts it's having on America, we have to make sure that we maintain our tax structure at a minimum where it is today. But frankly, we need to do more. We need to actually go down the road of major corporate tax reform, continuing to flatten out the corporate tax overall, lower that threshold, so that our businesses can retain more of their money and their dollars to help grow their businesses, to help pay their employees, and really through the process of a free economy, have the ability to provide for capital, not only for their businesses, but even to the providers that they do business with. I think if you take a look at what's happened with respect to government intervention because of the coronavirus pandemic, government had an opportunity to show itself to be an engine that can sustain all economic viabilities throughout our country, with our people and with our businesses, and they simply can't do it. It requires the economic engine of all businesses, large and small. So I think making sure that we keep our taxes low, but then also look at our regulatory environment and clean out old and outdated regulation that is a hindrance to small business. That's going to be job one. Job number 2 is going to be water. Water quality is critical to our area. We are actually in a situation now where the state of Florida has been committed to funding the water restoration projects necessary to clean up the Okeechobee flowway system here in South Florida. The federal government needs to do their job. I think President Trump should be commended. He's the first president to actually take the CERT projects seriously and actually fund them. And I think also credit needs to be given to Francis Rooney for he's done that work as well. And we need to continue that. That'll be my second job.
Byron, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Our next candidate who'll be answering that question with the top 2 to 3 issues is David Holden.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting this event. It's great to be here. It's been wonderful in this campaign to have a chance to engage with so many of the candidates. That's not often how it is, and the fact that we're able to have a frank and respectful discussion gives me great hope for the future of Southwest Florida and this nation as a whole. I'm David Holden. I was the Democratic nominee for this seat in 2018, running against Francis Rooney, hoping to finish the job here in 2020. My top issues, number 1, healthcare. If COVID has taught us nothing, it's that we need a robust, scientifically based public health system that has been to a great extent dismantled. We need to move to universal healthcare. In the richest country in the history of the world, healthcare is a fundamental human right and not a privilege. I would start by strengthening the Affordable Care Act, and then continuing to add reforms such as a public option and lowering the qualification age for Medicare as we move towards universal health care. And I want to make sure that women's health care is not forgotten and that women retain the ability to make the same healthcare decisions in their lives that I get to make in mine. The second issue, the economy. The economy looked great for those at the top before the pandemic, and now it still looks good for people at the top, not so much for the rest of working Americans. And this district is made up primarily of working families, and they need support. We need a living wage for every American. We need to ensure that every American has paid sick leave and that they have access to the kind of training and retraining as society changes and as industries change, so they can continue to support their families and enjoy prosperity. And third, environment. In a district that runs entirely along the Gulf Coast, our water and our air are critical. Thank you. And that is a question I will answer at another time.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your timeliness. I appreciate that. Thanks for joining us today. Our next candidate answering that question, top 2 to 3 issues, is Dane Eagle.
Thank you, Connie, and thank you, Jeannie, for hosting us with the Above Board Chamber. Appreciate the opportunity to discuss with you, and thank you for all the candidates for joining as well. I am Dane Eagle. I'm the Republican Majority Leader in the Florida House. I've served Southwest Florida in the Florida House for the past 8 years, where I'm born and raised, and I look forward to the opportunity to earn your vote for Congress. The top 3 issues that I'd like to tackle, and I'll start with the economy, and that is directly at this point and for the foreseeable future tied to China and holding them accountable. We are now to 25 and growing trillion-dollar debt. Our budget deficit is at $1 trillion a year in normal times, and with COVID and the CARES packages that we've been passing, that's growing to $5 trillion just for this year alone. We need to have some accountability with that process. And so in looking to China and holding them accountable, I believe that they owe us at least $5 trillion, $1 trillion for the debt that we owe them, and the $4 trillion for the CARES package that continues to grow. And that will help us offset some of the debt that we have here in the United States. And we need to solve that debt once and for all. We do that by continuing to hold China accountable, by making sure that we push forward with the trade agreements so that jobs are finally coming back to the United States once and for all, so that we can grow our economy and balance the budget, make sure we're paying down our debt, just like every family has to do right now in their homes, every business is having to do right now. The United States needs to live within its means, and we can do so by holding others accountable and by growing our economy. We do that by being smart, being frugal, pull back regulations, just like we've done in Florida. We have done this. We've balanced our budget. We've paid down taxes. We've paid down debt. We have reserves. We look to free market reform, getting government out of the way so that families and businesses can make the best decisions for themselves to grow our economy and not look to government for those answers. Next, we need term limits. We obviously need to fix the economy now. That's the first thing, but we can't continue to have these continuing resolutions and growing our debt and our deficit by having career politicians in Washington. I'm happy to serve as a part-time legislator here in Southwest Florida. And if you send me to Congress, I will work over the next decade to make sure that we have things in place. But then I'm going to come home and live under the laws that I've passed. I will self-term limit. But if we don't have others in Congress that are going to look to their constituents to do the right thing, we need to have term limits in place so that bright new minds and bright ideas and fresh ideas can come to Washington, and we, the people, can hold them accountable. And last, it is, of course, water. And I don't want to say that that's last in any particular order, but we have a crisis here in Southwest Florida. We've seen that. It's an entire state issue, quite frankly. But in Florida, over the past 2 years, as my tenure as House Majority Leader, we got $1.3 billion to try to address that crisis. And I give tremendous credit to Governor DeSantis for fulfilling his promises and making sure that it's become a statewide issue and not so much a regional issue. We need to bring that to Washington. We did get...
Sorry, Dane. We really do need to move over to the next candidate, which is Daniel Cowell. And I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but Daniel Cowell is next up to answer his top 2 to 3 issues.
Good afternoon, Connie and Jenny, and thank you for inviting me to this. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us
Muted a second ago. All right. My name is Daniel Cowell. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I'm a lifelong law enforcement officer. I'm a family man. Me and my wife have 6 children here, 3 girls and 3 boys, and they've all lived here in Southwest Florida. I went to school here in Southwest Florida, And I hope they grow up to make Southwest Florida their home, because it's a beautiful and great place to live. Now I'm going to answer to the questions that was brought up was about to business owners and small and large businesses here in Southwest Florida. I think the number one problem that most businesses are facing is the cost of healthcare that they're forced to purchase for their employees. And if they choose to use it as a fringe benefit as part of their employee package, I think healthcare has just been outrageous, and it's one of the biggest expenses. We need to go to Washington, D.C., and we need to get rid of what's left of Obamacare and rewrite this in a way it'll work. We need to get to the point where we could have healthcare where you could purchase across state lines and could be competitive. And that way, nobody has a stronghold in one state over another where you're forced to buy the healthcare within the state that you have your business. That just by the nature would lower the cost, and that would help the businesses very, very immensely. And secondly, government regulations. We need to downsize some of these government regulations over business. The Federal Trade Commission just is way out of hand on some of the regulations and stipulations they put on these businesses, especially now, and people were experiencing a lot where their brick and mortar stores couldn't be open and they had to sell online and do think outside the box and use different means to sell their goods. We need to loosen up on the online sales to where it's more economical for these small businesses, so they could spread out outside of their own little jurisdiction, but could reach out across state lines and sell their goods. And thirdly, I'm a strong opponent in a flat tax. I think we need to do something with our federal income tax system, and I think we should have a flat rate across the board. My name is Daniel Kowal, running for Congress, 19th District. Thank you.
Thank you again, Daniel. Thanks for joining us today. Our next candidate, Christy McLaughlin, will be joining us to answer the same question. What are your top 2 to 3 issues you hope to address if elected? Let's fix her audio here. Let's see if I can help get you there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're
okay.
You're all set. I'll restart the time clock there too. So
thank you. All right, so my name is Christy McLaughlin. I am, of course, a congressional candidate here for District 19 of Florida. I am a lifelong Southwest Florida resident. I was born and raised here in Naples. I went to college at Florida Gulf Coast University, and then I went to law school at Ave Maria Law School. This is my home, and I've never left because I've always fought to protect and serve this community. The reason why I've run for Congress is because time's up. There's too much at stake, and we cannot afford to have another congressperson who is a do-nothing politician who says pretty pageant words but doesn't take actual action that serves Southwest Florida. So with that said, my main issue that I would like to address is what we just recently saw with this COVID-19 pandemic. We saw extreme government overreach and infringement of our personal liberties and constitutional rights. That was a huge problem. And in the federal government, if personal liberties are being infringed upon, it is our duty to protect the personal liberties and constitutional rights of our constituents. People were unable to work. Businesses were shut down. It completely destroyed our economy, which, if you consider the fact that Southwest Florida is so heavily reliant on our tourist economy, and that's from January to April, we lost March and April. And that was devastating for many small businesses, and they had to shut down permanently. It was our duty in Congress to protect our constitutional rights and ensure that the COVID-19 pandemic did not result in destroying the average American citizen who is just trying to work. That was a huge issue. And since I am a constitutional lawyer, that is my promise to fight and protect our constitutional rights. I've been doing that, advocating against the shutdown from the beginning. Secondly, we all agree that water quality is one of our biggest issues because we're so heavily reliant on tourism and because it's just the prime aspect of Southwest Florida. Water quality, our pristine, clean environment, is exactly what ensures the stability of our area. And lastly, I would like to address indoctrination institutions. Since our youth are going to be the ones continuing on our businesses and our careers, we need to protect our students from indoctrination by universities. My website is Christy for Congress. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Christy. Our next candidate is Mayor Randy Henderson, who will be addressing his top 2 to 3 issues that he hopes to address if elected. Hello, Randy.
Hey, Connie. Hey, Jeannie, thank you for inviting me today with the other candidates. One of the top priorities for me as congressman will be to focus intensely on our economy, an area where I have had several decades of experience in building and unleashing economy right here in Fort Myers, where I have inspired many new businesses through policies that embrace small business and remove impediments from their opportunity to grow and to support their families. I've got a lot of experience in this. It's one that we need desperately to jumpstart and unleash the mighty American economy, get it back to where it was before here. Everybody's quality of life is better when America is strong and leading in the world in its economy. I have substantial background on this as a long-serving mayor of Fort Myers, and I will pour myself into this endeavor. I've known a lot of success in doing so. Part and parcel to that will indeed be supporting measures to manage water. I've had over a decade and a half experience leading the charge with other mayors and other elected officials from Tallahassee to Washington to secure and put us on and stay focused on the path to solving our water issues around Lake Okeechobee and beyond, which certainly do include Fort Myers. I've had a very positive influence over the Caloosahatchee River here in our city of 47 square miles, where our water and energy policy has moved us to a city of less than 92 or 93 septic tanks, improving our water and energy policy here in Fort Myers, installing filter marshes that inspire an economic and life quality benefit. Finally, I want to say that immigration will be a focus as we look to make sure that our country is secure. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Randy. We appreciate you being with us today. Our next candidate is Darren Aquino, who will also share his top 2 or 3 issues.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you for having all of us. God bless everybody. Well, let's talk about that. Everybody knows I'm the national chief advocate for disabled Americans, veterans, police, firemen, and families. For 35 years, up to now, 4 presidents have supported me and 3 United States justices. That's been a career and a promise that I've successfully changed and modified the laws that protect our civil liberties, which are in question now. But a priority here is water. I know this body here, this government was formed because of 2018. Water is very important to all of us. It's being worked on, but it needs more financial support in the way of money. I will put those things in place. But the most important to me as a national advocate watching the systemic problem around the country, and over here and in Fort Myers, we have 1,000 homeless veterans and another 2,000 homeless mothers and children. That is a systemic problem in the country. So healthcare with this incorporated in that are the mentally ill. So healthcare is second for me with the homelessness because that problem, they work together. I will fix and created a program because on my platform, which has been out there and it's been successful, is I will make a healthcare that is universal, but national, that I gave to President Bush 16 years ago, where he formed an idea to give voucher type programs for private insurance. I think we can build on the Medicare and Medicaid because healthcare is a fundamental right. I said that day one. It's been part of my practices going back when I ran for mayor of New York City. This is my home, and out here I'm fighting 5 cases now of civil rights question because the elected neglected to take care of the citizens here. My job has been ongoing. As Congress, I will make a better health care. We're going to address the water, and we're going to address the economic situation here since coming back from COVID. Everybody knows for 8 weeks I was laid up. I had COVID. But by God's grace, I'm still in the race. And I'm the front-running candidate by the numbers. The next issue is I want to bring in industry here to strengthen.
You're still with us. I just wanted to let you know time is up, though.
Oh, okay.
If you just want to give a closing sentence, that's fine.
Yeah. because of the economy, we need to bring in industry to strengthen our small businesses here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That actually concludes our first round of questions with the 10 candidates that we do have here today. And I thank you all. Hopefully everyone that's listening to today's program was able to understand what the key issues for each of these candidates are, so that you can see how well we're going to be represented with one of these amazing candidates that we have with us. Jeannie's going to go ahead and ask the second question and conduct the second round of questions with the candidates. Jeannie, would you like to go ahead and ask the next question?
I am. I'm excited. I just want to also say that they were excellent answers. Each one of you had great thought out answers, and this is how we get to know you. And we think it's really important that we can have that opportunity to listen to how you feel, because one of you are going to be blessed, and we're going to be blessed with to be our next congressperson. So thank you. And Connie, great job. Our next question is important. What do you feel are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? Now think about that for a minute, because we all have those things, and those are things we need to work on, and those things we need to show off about. And I'm going to pull up Cindy first. Cindy, what is your greatest strength and weakness?
Oh, what a classic interview question, huh? So yeah, so I would say that my greatest strength is my commitment and my qualifications here. I have run my business here for the past 11 years, helping nonprofits. I've worked with more than hundreds of nonprofits around our region and convened thousands of people trying to bring their voice out to be effective in policy making here. I also have, I'm on faculty at Florida Gulf Coast University in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration for the past 6 years. I teach American government and I teach global studies. I actually have been teaching students for those 6 years about systems and systems change in our world. And I think that's incredibly important right now. I have written extensively on community development and governance around the world. I have a master's and PhD focusing on public administration and international relations. I've worked in international poverty alleviation around the world, governments, more than 25 governments around the world. Make policy that's more efficient and effective and serves people as their first priority. Those are things that I think are incredibly important right now. So that's the qualifications I have here in terms of to the table. There's nobody else on this panel that has the level of expertise, both in practice and publishing in governance that I have right now. So I think that that is absolutely 100% a strength that I bring to the table, and something that I am ready and willing to put to work for the people of Southwest Florida, to listen to them, to bring them into the process of governance and make policy that actually helps people here based on what they actually want and need. Now, when it comes to weaknesses, I think I'll have to say I'm a little bit of a tough guy. Say what I think, I get passionate about issues, and I'm not afraid to back down. I was a former professional boxer, so I will go toe-to-toe with people in the ring. I will take the hits and keep on going, but that gives me the audacity to do what needs to be done. So I will say I am not afraid of bullies. I'm not afraid to sit in uncomfortable situations, and I am ready to take that and spin it to help the people of Southwest Florida.
Well, that's interesting. Thank you. Now we're going to bring up Dan. Dan, you want to tell us your strengths and your weaknesses?
Yeah, thanks, Jeannie. I think experience and character, proven leadership. I had 22, I was blessed to serve my country for 22 years in the military. I was officer in charge of an F-18 squadron, Top Gun qualified. Went on to Washington, D.C., spent 3 years there at the Bureau of Naval Personnel, and then went on to be executive officer of a weapons test squadron. All of those positions required a lot of interface, a lot of interaction, personal relationships, and management. And you don't get to be a commander in the Navy without having the skills to meet that position. And that's the beauty of our military. It gives those opportunities, and when they're met, they are rewarding. After I left the military, I was elected in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and I think here's the other part that the rest of the candidates don't have, and that is the experience to lead in a bipartisan manner. It was one of those where I served for 4 years in the majority, and then 4 years in the minority. And as the minority leader, I was the minority whip. And that doesn't mean that there was adversarial. It just means that we worked across party lines. We worked together where we could work together on issues that we agreed on. And then there was those issues like increased taxation. I was able to lead my caucus to hold back $3.2 billion in tax increases that were being pushed upon the people of Minnesota in that particular case. And so I've got the experience in both the military and in a CEO setting to run a squadron. And then on the business side, and then when you go over to the legislative side, which is what we're vying for, is being an effective congressman, to have that experience behind me in the Congress of being a worker across both aisles and having the tenacity and the integrity to do what my constituents really desired, and that was to keep taxes low, to make America the place that it was meant to be, a place of growing dreams.
Thank you very much. Patrick, you're up next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, very good. I think one of my greatest skills is seeing how to do things efficiently, looking at any problem and seeing the big picture, the national picture, even the global picture. And in 2001, after 9/11, I said to myself, well, we have to do things much more efficient than what we are doing for energy, renewable energy, our electric grid, taking on solar as a major player, and battery power storage, as well as wind, to improve our energy efficiency. And I created a proposal. Took me about 19 years to come up with all the information, research. I'm passionate about this, and I think it's important for America to be energy independent. And what you do is do that by efficiency. Our grid is not very efficient. It was created really in 1920s was when it was really developed, much earlier than that, in even 1880. And we went with AC power, but over the years, in the last 30, 40 years, DC power has become, the technology of it is actually more efficient than AC power. And one player you can look in this globally is China is currently switching their entire electric grid to DC power. All the main power lines they're building are DC power, and their goal is to, of course, have electric vehicles throughout their country as the only source for vehicles. And they're working towards that. The US isn't doing that because we have roughly several hundred large utilities, and they all do it for profit, whereas in China, it's government owned and it's for the people. But the same concept could be done in the United States, and it's an excellent project. And last thing is, I'm very impatient, and that's probably my worst.
Your time is up, so I'm sorry. So we're gonna go to Byron right now.
There we go.
There you go.
So I'll jump right into it. My biggest strength, I think one of the things that's not known as much about me is I've worked the last 17 years in our financial industry. I've been in banking, insurance, and now financial services for the past 5 years. And so, I would say my biggest strength, especially in this race, is my deep knowledge of our financial system, our financial markets, and how they intertwine and how government policy impacts businesses large and small throughout our economy. In my time dealing with business owners and talking with them about the issues, whether they are large owners or small owners, typically when they talk to elected officials, there's a big learning curve that they have to get them over, but they've never had to do that with me. And so that's a big strength of mine. Another strength of mine is that I do have an ability to build bridges and connect people on different sides of the political spectrum. Even though I have very conservative beliefs, the way I approach these issues is really talking about the moral arguments and what the things that we all want to see achieved in our communities. And, in my time in the legislature, whether you're Republican, Democrat, no matter the issue is education or criminal justice or commerce, I've been able to kind of bridge those gaps and work well with people, even though I have strong conservative beliefs. My biggest weakness, I'm not the most organized person in the world. You know, my wife told me that. My wife, Erica, if you've got a chance to meet her, she'll tell you he's not the most organized person in the world. But I think it's not so much what your weaknesses are. I think it's how you mitigate them. And, you know, the way I mitigate it is whether it's, you know, my wife, my helpmate, or even if it's the people that I've hired in my career and the people that I've hired in the legislature, I always make sure I have people who are on my team and who are working with me who are highly organized. They keep me on track and keep me focused on the things that are important for people.
Thank you, Byron. Excellent. The next person is David.
Okay, thank you. I think my greatest strength is compassion. And, you know, my life experience, the ups and downs I've experienced in my own life have taught me that compassion is an action. And what does compassion mean in the political world, in the policy world? I believe it means listening deeply to everyone in your community, people you may look different from, people who may have very different experiences in their life and very different views. But having those deep conversations and finding a way to bridge those differences, that's what my life has been about. It's about respect for others. It's about finding common ground. It's about treating people the way they want to be treated. You know, my heart is always heavy when I hear the president routinely denigrate groups and individuals who he thinks are unworthy of respect. It's become an epidemic, another epidemic of hate and fear-mongering in this country. And my work as a representative for this district will be to have those conversations with people who have perhaps never considered before supporting a Democrat, yet have done so because they see that we're on the wrong track in this country. We're in a deep crisis, and it's a moral and spiritual crisis of our caring for each other and working together for the common interest. My weakness, some would say that being a Democrat in Southwest Florida, but that just makes me fight harder for the things I believe in and for the opportunity to represent the people of this district. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Our next person that's going to be coming up is Mr. Dane Eagle. Dane?
Thank you, Jeannie. And I fixed my view so that I can see you signaling. It's on the gallery view now. I'd say my biggest strength is my passion and my experience, and those are tied together. My passion for my hometown and my passion for conservative values, my passion for public service has led to my ability to serve as the Republican Majority Leader in the Florida House. Came into the Florida legislature at 29 because I cared about this community and wanted to serve my hometown and make sure that we are on the up and up and that our economy is thriving, that businesses living are being able to live and have the freedoms and government's living within its means. And I was able to accomplish those things by working together with great colleagues, with Governor Scott and Governor DeSantis, and have some great accomplishments, and therefore can get ready working for you on day one when you send me to Washington. I'd say my biggest weakness is also tied to my passion. Because I spent the last 8 years, while it's considered a part-time legislature, I'm a commercial real estate broker by trade. A lot of my time was spent working on the legislative process, moving bills forward, serving my constituents. And I spent my prime earning years working on that sort of thing with no regrets. But what that means is I don't have millions of dollars to spend on this race and buy campaign ads to buy this race. I'm going to have to do this through grassroots, through talking to the individuals, for working with my friends and neighbors, having conversations with great people like you who are hosting this. And I will be doing that throughout the rest of this race. But I appreciate the opportunity very much.
Thank you, Dane. That was excellent. Our next person that will be coming up is, let me switch my thing. Hold on a minute. Would be Daniel. Daniel? Are you with us? Where's Daniel? Let's pull you up.
Hello.
Hello, there you are.
I'm going to start out a little differently. I'm going to actually start out with my weakness.
Okay.
Because my weakness is actually your strength as the people of Southwest Florida. My weakness is I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know everything about your industry or about what's important to you as the people of Southwest Florida. So I'm going to come to you to get those answers. And that plays into my strength. My strength is my whole career, my whole adult life, I've been either military or in law enforcement. And sometimes I've had to do things I didn't believe 100% in, but I had to carry that mission out. I had to, one time when I was in Washington, D.C. working for the U.S. Capitol Police, I had to watch a man burn the American flag on the east steps of the U.S. Capitol building. And I had to protect that man from counter-protesters. And it made me sick to watch it happen, but my mission that day was to protect him because he had the right to do that. He was given that right. So when I come to you with my weakness, which is not knowing everything in your industry or what is most important to the people of Southwest Florida, I'm going to listen to you because I'm going to be your representative. I'm going to be your servant in Washington, D.C., and I'm going to carry that exactly the way you give me that message, and I'm going to carry that to Washington, D.C., and present that to my fellow congressional members and try to convince them that's the most important thing for the people of Southwest Florida. I will not be bought. I will not be swayed, because my strength is discipline and esprit de corps. And I can guarantee that if the masses of the people of Southwest Florida and what they believe is important for them, I will carry that exactly the way it's given to me. And I won't be swayed in any way. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate that very much. The next person that we have coming up is Christy.
All right, thank you so much. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay, perfect. So my strength, I suppose, is actually one that was brought up by some of my opponents, Dane Eagle and Byron Donalds, mentioning that we need some new, fresh blood and fresh ideas. And that's extremely essential in Congress, especially now in 2020. And I'm happy to take on that mantle because I am the youngest person in the nation running for Congress. I was born and raised here in Southwest Florida. I've watched the development, I've watched the growth, but also maintaining the charm of our safe and clean community. And the way we continue on that path is with the same innovation, new and fresh ideas that I intend to bring to Congress. I am a constitutional lawyer. I have studied business entities and commercial law. I am a very strong advocate, and I'm a bit of the fiery one. I am the one who is unbought and unbossed. And on that same token, I suppose that brings up my weakness then, which is name recognition. Because I'm not a career politician, I don't have the name recognition that some of my opponents do have. But I suppose that's actually, a good thing when it comes up to my motto, which is to be unbought, unbossed, and unburdened. When you're a career politician, it's just going down that same path of self-interested politicians that are going to serve themselves rather than the community. My parents, my first job was at a small business that my parents owned. They are a medical office here, local, that's been open for 25 years in Naples, Florida. I care about the small business community, and it's something that I'm very passionate about protecting. And how we do that is having a local and tenacious Southwest Florida lifelong resident protecting our interests.
Thank you, Christy. That was excellent. Next, we have Mayor Randy Henderson. Randy, are you up? Can we? Wait a minute. We're going to unmute you. Okay, here you go. Maybe not.
Can you hear?
I can.
Floor
Okay. Thank you, Jeannie. Just quickly, I'll run through a list to try to respect the time, but I have a substantial and successful background in finance and real estate, over a 20-year span in the public and private sector. I'm a dogmatic results-oriented doer. There's substantial documentation of my success in this area. I have spent 20 years of successful public service. I'm a small business owner and have helped countless small businesses expand over the years and grow and provide for their families. I'm a team builder and have team building leadership experience, all of it documented and all of it evident in the time that I have been a public servant. And finally, to my knowledge, there are no known post-teenage year documented weaknesses that I can relate to. And I don't know about the other panelists. I would never strike a lady, and I love soft serve ice cream.
That's an important thing. Thank you, Randy. Our next panelist will be Darren.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Hello. Okay. Well, my strengths come from my faith in God, my determination, my patriotism, and my faithfulness, because 35 years of successful negotiating with the elected who were wishy-washy on both sides to serve millions of Americans, because one of my weaknesses was I was afraid because I was disabled. It became my greatest strength. and it's no longer a weakness. I've been successful to change the policies that were mandated by law, but not enforced by the states. So these things and the things I'd like to change in policy are the things that got away from American values, our founding. We're watching the destruction of our country to rip away history. History, and if they take away history, your healthcare, all these things will be gone. We have to have strength, character, integrity, and honesty. Those are my strengths. That's what led me and these 4 presidents, even a Democratic president, that said, Darren, this is what you do good. Now it's my time to serve my country and to help my fellow Americans, because there's 150 million disabled Americans. Most of the folks I fought for were 9/11 survivors. A lot of them you saw on the news died. Friends of mine. I was there when the first plane hit, and I've watched leadership fall. My determination, my strength, my 35 years of experience, and even fighting for 5 families now that the elected are neglecting, leads me to do it and continue the work. I promise that when I get there, we're going to strengthen. We have 30 non-naturally born elected congressmen and women. I'm going to put back a policy and amend it that you have to be American born, American raised, American made, because Ilhan Omar wanted to give $100 million to illegals and leave 70,000 homeless veterans on the street. These are our American foundings, America first.
Thank you so much. I'm going to bring Connie up right now, and Connie is going to dismiss there. My little beeper was going up. Connie's going to ask us our 3rd question. I just want to say each one of you had excellent answers for your second one. It's great to know your strength and your weakness. And one of the greatest strengths is to be able to identify your weakness and to talk about it. So thank you to each one of us. Connie, you're up now.
All right, thank you, Jeannie. Just again, thanks to our candidates. This final question we're going to ask has to do with our business community. What will you do to support small businesses if elected? And as all of you know right now, the business community has been severely impacted by COVID-19. So you can answer this question any way that you would like to. It looks like COVID's not going away anytime soon. Our business community is struggling to get back on their feet and recoup and recover and restart after COVID-19 was announced in March. So I'm going to ask you one by one, what will you do if elected to support small businesses? And to our attendees and our guests that are also listening in today, just a reminder that this is our final round of questioning. If time allows, we're going to go ahead and provide some of your questions to the candidates too. So just scroll down, hover over the Q&A box there, and go ahead and add your questions to the candidates if you would like to ask some personal questions to them to address. So without further ado, what will you do, candidates, to support small businesses if elected? And we're going to start with Cindy Banyai.
Yes, thank you. So this is a very important question for us here in Southwest Florida. As we know, both through research that I've actually conducted in this region, we know that 91% of our businesses here are small businesses. And actually not only small businesses, but micro businesses, meaning they have 20 full-time employees or less. That's a significant amount of our businesses and our earners in this region. And even a larger proportion of them are sole proprietors, right? People who are just out there trying to make ends meet for their That's me. I've started 3 businesses here in Southwest Florida, my consulting businesses helping nonprofits. I've started a fitness business doing Zumba and personal training. And I actually started a nonprofit that helped homeless families in Cape Coral. And these were exceedingly difficult to do. Starting up an organization as a small business is hard. It's hard to get capital access, and it's hard to even get guidance. There's a couple of great organizations, and chambers absolutely fill that role. But what we don't have enough of is actual support, so startup support. So that's where I would start is making sure that we are reallocating funds that we are now using, subsidize large corporations, and redirect some of that money to help them start up. help them scale up, and help them fill gaps in our community. Because that's the other thing the research that I've done here in Southwest Florida has shown me. We have gaps in our community, and we have a brain drain from our local universities. So we are losing people here every day, and people that we need. We actually need frontline managers and supervisors and administrative staff and mid-level employees. We cannot get them here. And so we need to make sure that we are having a comprehensive approach to small business development, as well as investing in things that will keep our talent pool here, such as affordable housing, affordable healthcare, and good schools. So it's a total package with me when I'm in Congress fighting for small business owners in Southwest Florida, making sure that we have the supports that we need to carry out our businesses and the community that will support us.
Thank you, Cindy. We appreciate that. Our next question, our next candidate is Dan Severson. Same question. What will you do to support our small businesses if elected?
One of the things that I want to see, and I think is most important, is what I had talked about in the first section, was that the Tax Cut Jobs Act that actually creates a much more business-friendly environment. And the third part of that was the expensing part. Right now, businesses that make major capital investment have to amortize it over a long period of time. This expensing would allow them to do that over a 5-year period where they can realize more of the gain upfront and continue to invest in their businesses. When I was a state representative and I was first elected, one of the things that I did was I door knocked my district about 2.5 times, about 13,000 homes. It was a big deal, but to me, that was really connecting with my constituents, understanding what their needs were and how I could best meet those needs in the legislature. And I will do the same as your congressman in Washington. I will make sure that I am available and that my door is always open, and I will get out and door knock to find out for those businesses, what are the most what are the most egregious impediments to their success in business? What are they experiencing, and how can I, as their federal representative, better meet those needs and have their voice heard in Congress? So one of the other things we did in the military is we did something called LBWA, Leadership by Walking Around. You just get out, you find out what's going on in the squadron, you find out what's going on in the business sector. To me, will be the most important and the most satisfying in terms of being able to help individuals and individual businesses. That's my commitment as your congressman in Washington.
Thank you so much, Dan. We appreciate that. Our next candidate up is Patrick Pote. Same question for you, Patrick. How do you plan on helping small businesses if elected? We have to unmute you. I apologize. Let's see what we can do here for you. There we go. I think you're on now. Can you hear? Oh, maybe not. Let's see.
Let me try it from my end.
There you go, Patrick.
Okay, very good. I want to improve the quality of life in our area, and one of the things is making Southwest Florida and Naples and all the surrounding cities, Bonita Springs, Estero, Marco Island, Sanibel, Fort Myers, more livable communities. One thing that people really enjoy doing in tourist locations such as ours all over the country, one big factor is they have bicycle paths everywhere. Whereas in our area, it's kind of dangerous to ride a bike. It's not really set up for that. So I have an idea and I promoted it with Governor DeSantis and local leaders here, city and county leaders, to create a light rail system running from Marco Island to the Fort Myers International Airport with a bike path running along either side. It would be about 50 miles long, and it would be run by solar power of transit stations along the way. The one thing it does is it makes the city much more world-class. I've lived in cities like Portland, Oregon, with a great transit system. I've lived in Coral Gables in Miami using the Miami Metro. I used it all the time. It's terrific. I think we need a traffic system here for transportation for people to, as well as commuters as well as tourists, to travel and easily, inexpensively throughout our area. This will make the city a much more livable community, and naturally will create jobs, and people that have businesses near the light rail system, they will have customers brought directly to them by a simple system. Get us out of our cars, and this is in opposition to the road line that they want to run, a toll road from Orlando to Naples. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Our next candidate is Byron Donalds. Let us know what you think you can do to help small businesses in our community.
This is a great question, especially the way you laid it up earlier, Connie, about the impacts of coronavirus. I think that if we see a situation where there's cases rise again and we get concerned again about coronavirus, what we can't do is shut down again. There is not the capacity at the federal level to provide capital to small businesses with the speed and efficiency that they need it in order to survive. We can't go through another shutdown process. And if I'm your congressman, I'm going to be leading that charge to make sure that we don't go through another shutdown process and that we actually empower small business owners to make effective decisions for the way to keep themselves safe, their employees safe, and their customers safe, even though we might be going through a pandemic situation. The second thing we have to do is actually clean up the regulatory state. And I said this a little bit in the first question. We have to clean out our regulatory process with these old burdensome regulations that are not helping small business owners compete, and it's not helping them, frankly, be efficient with their money. The other part is doing what we can from a regulatory basis to make sure access to capital is easier and quicker for small businesses. But the last part kind of speaks to what's going on in America today. Unfortunately, we're seeing these movements, and we're not going to see it in Southwest Florida, but we've been seeing it around these countries, these defund the police movements. And they want to take the money out of police departments and put it into other organizations. But if you don't have peace, you can't have prosperity. And so it's important that we have law enforcement that is in our communities doing what they do best, which is protecting and serving. And we do some of the other reforms necessary to get bad police officers out of the force, but we can't dismantle and destroy police departments simply because of what we may see on TV, even though it is a tragedy. We need strong police in our communities. They provide the basis of peace in our communities. And without that, you cannot have economic prosperity. And that's the things I think you need to do if you're going to support small businesses. And that's the work that I'm committed to.
Byron, thank you so much. Next up is David Holden. David, what do you plan to do to help small businesses if elected?
All that I can. One of the things I enjoy so much about these forums is, we really get to hear clear choices about how each of these candidates want to lead, how we want to lead this country forward. And my friend Byron Donalds and I also have a financial services background. In fact, he and I worked in the same organization, have pretty much opposite views. I want to repeal the 2017 corporate tax cuts. I think one of the problems with facing small businesses is that over the last 20 years, we've reduced the tax burden on corporations by about 80%. And so where's the revenue coming from? It's coming from working families and small businesses. So I want to refocus where the tax burden rests, and I think much more of it should be resting on large corporations. We've given trillions and trillions of dollars to large corporations over the last 30 years and the 3 enormous tax cuts that we've passed. And 2 weeks into an economic crisis, after 10 years of enormous profits that they haven't used to develop their workforce or to raise salaries, but they've done 2 things: stock buybacks and executive compensation. So we've got to rebalance the system. We also need to invest in workforce housing and workforce development. If you look at the jobs that we lost from Arthrex, a Southwest Florida company, born and bred, we lost about 200 high-paying jobs to South Carolina because we simply did not have the workforce development and the workforce housing to support those jobs. So I think that we do have to work on the regulatory state. We have to give small businesses the freedom to do what they do. In fact, they're the engine of our prosperity. But we have things that we need to invest in as a people. And in order to do that, we're going to need to rebalance how taxes are collected and how those investments.
David, thank you so much. Next up, we have Dane Eagle addressing the same question. Dane, what can you do if elected to help our small businesses in Southwest Florida?
We need to get government out of the way. The reason that businesses are in this position right now is because of government in the first place. They did not ask to be shut down. Obviously, we have an unprecedented crisis on our hands, and I think our president and our governor, Ron DeSantis, did the best job they could with this crisis. And the governor decided, of course, he was going to be one of the last states to shut down and one of the first to reopen. So very grateful that business can get out there and start thriving again. And of course, we've seen the unemployment rates come down, productivity rates go back up. So things are back at it. And that's because government got out of the way. The shutdown has been extremely unfortunate, and government did owe for that compensation. That's a government taking, and therefore they owe just compensation, and we're doing so through PPP. I think China needs to pay for that, and I talked about that in the beginning. So beyond that, we need to get back out of the way. We can't go to another stimulus package. We can't go to another shutdown. We just need to let businesses thrive and do what they do best, and we do that by peeling back the regulations, just like we did in Florida. We do that through tax cuts and sound financial responsibility. We've cut taxes in Florida by $10 billion in the last 8 years, cut our debt by $8 billion, $4 billion in reserves. Government needs to live within its means, step out of the way, let businesses, smart people do what they do best and thrive by making sure those regulations are repealed. And furthermore, it's also important to know the job of the federal government. As your congressperson, I'm going to respect the 10th Amendment and do exactly what I need to do to make sure that our nation is thriving. But beyond that, I'm going to look to our state and our local elected officials to make sure that they're doing what they can for our government and working closely with them. And having worked at that level for the past 8 years and growing up in this community, I know those elected officials very well, and I'll keep that line of communication open so that we have cohesive communication from the top all the way up, all the way back down to the bottom.
Dane, thank you so much. Great answers. Next up, we have Daniel Kowal joining us to answer the same question. Daniel, what can you do to help small businesses if elected?
First off, I agree with Byron and Dane at the beginning that they said, we cannot never let this happen again and have these small businesses that they're told to shut their doors by no fault of their own. They've just created such a burden upon them. They don't have the ability to support and sustain being closed like that. And that being said, taxes, the way the tax system now is you're basically punished for success. The more successful you are, the more taxes you have to pay. And that needs to be changed. And then what I want to do is I want to form a small business task force. And I want to take members from all the different small businesses from District 19, from the different cities and the county, and have them represent themselves in a small business task force, anybody willing to participate in that. And the reason to do that is because not everything's a cookie cutter fit here in Southwest Florida. You got cities like Cape Coral that is a very large mass city compared to a city like Naples is very small. There's no real industrial area in the city of Naples within their jurisdiction. But of course, Cape Coral, you do have industrial areas. You can have a guy that has a fabrication steel shop or something like that. So it's important for him to have certain things alleviated on him with the federal government. And if there's money out there, or grants or stuff like that, I can come every quarterly and we'll have that wish list brought to me, and I'll take that to Washington, D.C. And if I find these grants or money or anything available for these different businesses that fit their organizations within their jurisdictions of District 19, I will fight to see that come back to them. Okay. That way we're not just going up there and just aimlessly saying, all right, this is a big business like Hertz. We see the disaster that happened there. We went out and Hertz, they gave Hertz a big tax break and all this. Now they're going to go basically they're going to go bankrupt here right in front of our eyes. And they didn't really put anything back in the community because they didn't pay anything back to us because they were here for free for the first few years. And it just we don't need the one size fits all. We need the smaller groups telling me exactly what they need and that can represent them in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Daniel, now next up, answering the same question is Christy McLaughlin. Christy, what do you think you can do for small business if elected?
Well, to echo my opponents, they had mentioned that these shutdowns cannot happen again, but that's actually because they shouldn't have happened really in the first place to this extent. It is an unprecedented situation, but we saw President Trump hesitating to close for a reason, because he knew that the harm was going to be worse than the actual good that it was supposed to cause with preventing the spread and slowing the spread of the virus. It actually resulted in so many businesses having to close down, people falling into poverty, increases of domestic violence, increases of depression, drug abuse. It was devastating. So we have, in the spirit of accountability, we have to identify that we actually have state representatives in this race who, while representing our area, actually stood by and allowed these shutdowns to continue far beyond the extent that they ever should have. And this is a terrible time to not have proactive leadership. Responsive leadership is not good enough. We see with the autonomous zones, CHAZ, in Seattle, that this reactive measures is extremely damaging. There are small businesses within CHAZ that are unable to open because they've been completely taken over by this terrorist group. So we cannot have do-nothing politicians. We cannot have complacent politicians in seats anymore. We need proactive measures, and we need strong responses to protect our small businesses. So with that said, I protect our constitutional rights. I want to reduce taxes. I firmly disagree with David Holden. I am in favor of the tax cuts that happened in 2017, and I think we need more of them. We need to flatten the income rate for companies as well. And then lastly, we need to take away the regulations against our small businesses, because government intervention is what is causing more harm than good. Let us have a free market. Let the personal liberties lead us in this venture.
Thank you, Christy. Our next candidate up is Mayor Randy Henderson. Mayor Henderson, what are your plans to help small businesses if elected? I can unmute you. Hold on one second. I think I can. Jeannie, maybe you can help me, or Javier. It's not, he's having trouble with his audio.
Yeah,
There we go.
there it is. I think we're doing it.
There you go, Randy.
Connie, this is exactly the question that will separate me from the rest of the contestants in this race. When I get to Congress, I will simply continue to do what I have been doing as a mayor, long-serving mayor of Fort Myers, and as supporting public expenditures that include infrastructure that give the small businesses the opportunity to expand, provide for their families, and unleash this great American economy. I have spent substantial time pushing policy that incentivizes small business. We have a long, successful track record of doing that, removing impediments to small business, keeping the tax base low, making sure that small businesses have the opportunity to explode our economy, get it back to the economy we knew before the shutdown. I have supported small business my entire adult life for the last 36 years by serving and supporting the interest of Chamber of Commerce's who work to support training for small business, incentivizing small business, moving impediments away, and I will continue to do that in Congress, just as I have done here as the mayor of Fort Myers. And finally, I would say that curbing our taxes would serve as an impediment to our small business, keeping those taxes low so that businesses can grow and provide the cash flow to this country that will bring us back to our glory. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate that. Next up is Darren Aquino. Darren, can you tell us a little bit about what you can do to help small businesses if elected?
I keep saying.
Hold on, I think let's get your sound on.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is my strength. Now, for 35 years, I got wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. The small businesses here is a lot of the hospitality. Those are mom and pop, and sometimes there's a two-family income there because the mom or the dad is out working another job to help the other business survive, most recently. But with the 65 million job plan we already put on the president's desk, it's going to bring in industry. Industry is also going to feed those businesses, but we got to strengthen those. So for the working, struggling family that has a small business, we're going to put a federal tax cut on overtime, that after 40 hours, you won't put tax. I put that out in a press release already. So to strengthen business, we have to create new jobs as well. So like I said, we have that. Tomorrow I'm having a town hall meeting. I'm going to talk more about that 65 million job. The president likes the idea and it will work. It's going to help strengthen our country. But here's the reality. We don't know between now and the time I get to Washington what's going to happen. That's the reality. But if it stays as it is, we're going to start to flourish because I'm a dedicated, patriotic man. And my cousin has the biggest company, and it started with a truck, and that's Arizona Iced Tea. So I have experience in how we can make that grow, because I was offered that opportunity and I didn't take it. I would have been part of Arizona, but I know what to do for our fellow citizens here, how to strengthen that. That's one of the attributes of being an advocate. I've been on both sides, disabled families that tried to make their struggling businesses survive. I'm going to put in place. The regulations are going to get removed. We're going to serve certain people with additional help, because everybody's situation is different and we have to recognize different. So we're going to legislate power back to the people, take away from government and give it back to we the people. Those are the intentions. So the backbone of this country are the small businesses. Here, it's mainly hospitality in this part of Southwest Florida. And we got to strengthen them after this COVID, because they're hurting very bad. So new.
All right. I want to thank all the candidates. That wraps up our 3 questions for today. Thank you, Darren, for answering that last question for us. Jeannie's going to be joining us to go ahead and give some closing remarks. But, and Jeannie, I don't know if we have time for any other questions at all, but I'm going to leave that up to Jeannie.
Well, we have 10 minutes. I have a couple things to do. So we basically have, I think we can do this. Basically, I want to tell you what's going on with the Above Board Chamber. And I have to agree with Connie. Thank you. I got to know each one of you a whole lot better, know your passions, know your weaknesses, and know your vision. And those 3 things are really important when you're going to run for an office such as Congress. So thank you for all of you stepping in and saying you want to do something to make our lives and our community better. We have a lot of different things that are coming up with the Above Board Chamber. We have a webinar coming up next week, which is the Celebrity Chef Creation, where we bring in top celebrities and people get to cook with them in their kitchen, which is a whole lot of fun. We also have something special coming in on July 9th. We have a New York-based global economist who's going to provide a glimpse into the future. It's James Sweeney. From Credit Suisse. He is the chief economist and the regional CIO of the America, who happens to be my son. Yes, he is. And we're very, very excited. He speaks all over the world, and we're going to get to hear him, and that's on July 9th. On July 16th, we're going to talk about diversity in the workplace, which we think is really important and a great topic right now. And then on July 23rd, once again, we're going to bring in more celebrity chefs. Thank you again, each one of you. Thank you, Connie. Thank you for being our amazing co-host. Thank you for being a sponsor. Thank you, Javier, who's in the background somewhere. And he is, as Connie says, our Wizard of Oz in the background that keeps our webinars going without a problem. We're very excited about it. So I just want to thank each one of you. And Michael Lungo, as well as being a sponsor. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here because he's out making brides happy, and we can't think of a better job than that. So I wish you all well. Your path is amazing. Enjoy each step that you take, and because this journey is yours. God bless you all. Thank you for being part.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.